And I'm gonna wait to see if it actually goes live. I don't know if I trust this or not. Okay, there it goes. Okay. Welcome, all you Smurfs, all you lovely people out there. It is I, Praise Locke, and I'm here with the one, the only, the Cognitive Society. How are you today, Cog?
Hi, I'm not doing too badly. Thank you for having me on. I'm still in my pajamas, but you can't see because the camera's off.
That's good. How's the quarantine treating you these days?
Not so bad, not so bad. Unfortunately, I found out that I've still got a 4,000-word essay in at the end of the month, so I'm not too happy about that. But apart from that, it's all good. How's it treating you? How's isolation life in the US of A?
Isolation's good so far, I suppose. We're not so badly hit in my state because our governor took things seriously, and my city especially took things seriously, and the city entered economic lockdown like 2 weeks ago. So
that's very good. Have they been doing widespread testing?
Well, I don't think we have the resources for that, but
okay.
Like pretty much like everything since like the 18th has been closed.
Oh, good. I mean, so, our leader back then was saying
I think you guys
proudly,
were still thinning out the herd.
Yeah, thinning out the herd, and he was saying proudly how he was going around hospitals shaking hands with coronavirus patients. He has, of course, come down with coronavirus since that point. Yeah.
That's terrible. Just for everyone who's watching this now or in the future, the town crier of the left on YouTube, Some Random Geek, could not join us today. He is working. His company apparently has shifted to making medical supplies for the outbreak. So, he's off, saving humanity. And here we are in our pajamas. Woohooligan Comedy, the YouTube channel, may be joining us. I haven't heard from him yet. He might join us late. So hopefully he can. But for now, we're going to do a little fun riff track on this video, which gets stupider every time you view it. It really... The two best unthinkers. Now, chat may have misheard me. I did not say the worst thinkers. I did not say non-thinkers. I said unthinkers. Because some reason they keep going backwards.
Yeah. Gradually regressing.
So for anyone who's not familiar with the background of the sequence of events that may have led up to these two individuals, Stefan Molyneux here on the left, and Carl Benjamin, aka Sargon of Akkad, on the right. So last week, I believe it was, I don't know his proper channel name anymore. Dr. Layman is how he used to be known on YouTube, which most people probably know him as still. He was running a sort of big community live stream kind of thing. And because it was quarantine and some people needed extra money, so, they ran this big event with all these different weird skeptics that I've never heard of before. Now, I don't personally know why Dr. Layman associated with Sargon in that particular instance, because the stream has been deleted, apparently per Sargon's request. Now, for the record, I don't actually really distaste Dr. Layman. I actually think he's kind of interesting and funny sometimes. I put him in the same camp as skeptics like Logic, who, for people who don't know, is the skeptic who dresses like a gimp with 3D glasses. Even though they're like really, really hardline free speech warriors, I don't think they're bad actors, right? Like, they accept criticism. Dr. Lehman, in fact, ended last year, 2019, with a video that a Nazi apparently came up to him and was a big fan, and he completely stepped away from YouTube because of that. Like, he's conscious that his words have effects. So I don't want like any of this to rub off on him per se. So Carl is not like that, obviously, right? Carl knows he attracts Nazis. Carl knows that he's in the pipeline for Nazis. Carl doesn't care. And the same with Stefan. So they're on different ends as far as I'm concerned, right? There's like targets, and then there's just people you have to oppose. Carl is a target. Yes. Dr. Lehman is a reasonable person who I think you can oppose. I don't know if you have thoughts on any difference between that kind of thing or not, but
I'd have to look into Dr. Lehman specifically because I've never, I haven't come across their content. However, yeah, there is a major difference between people who just merely hold problematic opinions and people who recognize those problematic opinions and then turn around and go, well, yeah, but the left. Which is a different thing entirely.
Yep. So finishing up our backstory here on this stream, Carlagon made a few comments that came out a little bit too authoritarian, white race Nazi. Among them that white women should be encouraged, even without their consent, to have children. To put it lightly. This led to a lot of social distancing on Twitter, as a bunch of people who have stuck by Sargon, who for God knows what reason, after he torpedoed an entire right-wing party, to finally say, oh, that's a step too far, Carl. But in his blind, desperate grab, groping around in the darkness for a hand to lift him up, Carl apparently found one in Stefan Molyneux, the Polish racist. I don't know if he's from Poland originally. His family, I know. He's from Canada, which is really weird.
Yeah. I don't know what it is about Canada, but Canada keeps pumping out these like far right types that are really, really especially. I mean, what have we got? We've got Stephen Crowder. We've got Stefan Molyneux. We've got who else among their group is far right types? Who is it? There's a couple more, but I can't think of them.
I don't know if you want to count Armored and June in that number, but they are Canadian.
Yes. Yeah. I'm trying to think.
I don't know if they're quite as awful as Stefan, but
there's some room for distinction there, I think.
There's definitely room for distinction, although in terms of intellectual ability, I suppose I'd kind of keep them on the same rung.
Certainly. But shall we have a look through what they've got to say?
Yep. For the record, everyone, apparently I don't know how to interact with StreamYard here. So my volume wasn't working, so we're having Cog run the board, as it were.
I just hope it all goes to the stream okay. Hopefully it should, but we'll see.
If anyone's listening and needs to hear it louder, we'll try to figure something out.
Let me know, because I can probably sort that out at my end. Right. Yeah, let's see what they've got to say.
I'm joined by Stefan Molyneux, host of Freedom Main Radio, and a man who spends his time terrorizing left-wingers with pertinent questions and uncomfortable observations. And he's generated quite an interesting following and reputation because of it. And he's often maligned very unfairly.
Stop the tape.
Yep.
Carl says uncomfortable observations here. I know this because I've seen the video already, but or most of it, I think. The first thing these two idiots are going to start talking about is how many eggs Taylor Swift has.
Yeah.
The thing is, if you accept that as an uncomfortable opinion, Stefan is wrong about that, by the way. He's right in principle, right? We know if you had a sex ed class, at least you know, some kind of health class, which I know 80% of the United States doesn't, but you know that women, reproductively speaking, women start their lives with a stockpile, basically, of gametes in their ovaries, and men, because all fetuses are born female and they have to adapt their physiology to become male, they simply process gametes in the testicles constantly. So there are two like sort of competing, like mercantilism versus sustainability kind of thing going on here. So women do go through like a stockpile of eggs. They don't do it by the age of 30, as Stefan likes to imply here. 30 years old, you're still like at the prime of your reproductive life. Menopausal symptoms that we know of them start around 45 in most women. So he's off by like 50% here. He's off by 100% actually, because, you know, supposedly Taylor Swift wasn't fertile before 15 years old. So he's off by 100% here.
Yeah, that's quite ironic, actually, isn't it? Yeah. This is going to get weird. Shall we let them continue?
Yeah, let's hear some truth.
Yeah, I am, in fact, because he entertains questions that are difficult to answer and things that are uncomfortable in many different circumstances. Stefan, how are you?
I'm well, Carl. I'm very well. It's an exciting time to be around. It's a great time to be a thinker, and it's one of these great tragedies of having been right for so long, warning people about communism, warning people about China and the great unmarked predator that's prowling the world these days. And you know, being a philosopher is like being an oncologist. You always hate being right.
For the record, that's my last video.
What
as to why calling it the Chinese virus is suicidal.
Yeah. I mean, just purely in like numbers terms, like GDP, like China's GDP is going to be twice the size of the US's by 2050, even if we hadn't been hit by coronavirus. Like that would have been the case anyway. So to take an approach of, oh, well, we'll just take them head on is kind of stupid, and to try and turn China into the bad guy is probably the wrong approach. You've got to start looking at Chinese politics and going, you know, if you're going to deal with the rise of China, you've got to look at Chinese politics and go, well, you know, how do we make sure that the most liberal, that this new superpower that might, or that certainly will be the largest superpower in the world in 30 years' time, how do we make sure that it's actually, you know, it's not completely out of control? How can we influence Chinese politics? But Stefan takes this kind of...
We used to have leaders that just... Sorry.
No, go on. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, we used to have leaders who did that, which is one of the reasons, like, I'm one of the rare people who on January 21st of 2017 had equally low opinions of both Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, because they were both happy that they had left the TPP. Which, for those who don't know, from a geopolitical perspective, setting aside a lot of the fine print that people had problems with, from a geopolitical perspective, the TPP was an agreement specifically designed to divert money away from China and towards the United States. That's why every member of the Pacific Rim was a signatory, except for China. That was the whole reason we had that treaty. It's also, the United States was in a position where it could wait out the Chinese economy if they wanted to compete head-to-head, because China's about to go off the demographic cliff that they accidentally one-childed themselves into. And they're going to have a lot of problems in like 10, 20 years. all we had to do was wait it out, but we had Trump, so
yeah. You yeah, I can see why that would be problematic. And I miss the days of having leaders who actually understood world politics and how to use soft power.
if only.
Yeah, one of the things I
glorious days.
Yeah, one of the things I will actually praise Obama for is that Obama was very good at using soft power with Putin when it came to Syria and Assad. And Donald Trump has just got no idea what soft power is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yes.
I heard that interesting statistic, though, this week, that apparently this would be like the last month, apparently, of David Cameron's term. Is how long this past century has been.
This month would have been yes.
Oh if God. David Cameron had actually not fucked everyone in the UK over. This would be his last month in office.
That's a really good point. Yeah, it's just been
That's
really long
weird thing. It's weird to think about how much you can screw up in such a short amount of time.
I know. That's crazy. I hadn't thought of it like that. Yeah. But anyway, shall we let's not deprive these two fine thinkers of their airtime. Shall we head on? Let's see.
It's good for fair use if we do it that way, though.
Yes, this is good for fair use if we divide it up. But yeah. Let's have a look.
It's gonna be bad. Got to watch out for this stuff. And it was like, oh, you're crazy. My TV is very cheap, and that's all that I need in the world.
Yes.
And now that, of course, things have come to pass, that this open borders, this offshoring of manufacturing, particularly the old healthcare manufacturing, which seems a little bit more important than a cheap plasma TV, has all come to pass, and it's all very bad. I guess if I was a slightly more petty person, like maybe 1%, I'd be like, in your face, world, I told you so. You didn't listen. Too bad for you. But fortunately, I'm above all of that.
So I kind of want to address the fact that he brought up manufacturing abroad. And bear in mind for a second, he's a free market libertarian, allegedly. But Stefan doesn't seem to understand you can't be a free market libertarian and then go, oh, but even though it's cheaper to produce stuff in China, companies shouldn't be allowed to do that. Like, that's not straight up not free market libertarianism.
Works.
Yeah, exactly. And so in terms of trade policy, he has no right to tell anybody that they're I told you so, with the I told you so logic. But also with the whole mass immigration stuff, he doesn't seem to understand that it's not actually about immigration itself. It's about social distancing. Like, we're also not being allowed across across borders that you'd usually be allowed to for example, general travel in the UK is restricted. Like, you're not allowed to go and visit people in Yorkshire, even though you live in the same borders. It's not about having border control as such, but making sure that people are socially distancing, which is very hard to do if you've got constant movement. And also the way that people cross borders, the primary way that people cross borders is either on a boat or an aeroplane. And both of those things are hives for coronavirus because you're sharing the same air constantly. But yeah, I just wanted to get that.
Also, I would throw in, this isn't my observation. I think I got this from Happy Hour, but they pointed out that Stefan complaining that China took all the manufacturing jobs. He's complaining about that like the United States is a socialist, utopia. But
yeah,
all the jobs, all the manufacturing jobs went from the socialist utopia to the communist utopia.
Yes. Yeah.
Thus proving that communism is the better system, I think. Possibly.
Yeah, that's it's an interesting one. Yeah.
Is developed.
I put the slight cap on it that I don't think that China is a communist country, but it's nonetheless very amusing that it's a communist country in name that the manufacturing jobs have gone to. Yeah. But anyway, Yeah, did you want to add anything else to that bit,
No,
or
I'm good right
push
now.
on? Cool.
So, yeah, things are good. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. You and Alex Jones seem to have the curse of Cassandra, where you keep saying things, but no one believes you, and then something happens, and
I'm just going to say I will
Everyone
never
goes
believe frogs are turning gay from
The
water.
frogs did, yeah, yeah. I can't believe Alex Jones was right on that. The frogs did turn gay. What? Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Alex Jones is a weird person to bring in at this point. Like if you're going for people who have been right about things, at this point, I'm not sure the anti-socialist healthcare Alex Jones is really the person to bring up. Like surely the people who've been advocating for universal healthcare and a system which can take economic shock have been proved right, rather than this kind of living on the edge kind of system that we have at the moment.
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't know that Stefan is the person who I would say, and particularly Alex Jones, has been proved right at this point.
70% of corporations live bailout to bailout, so we really need to make them more secure and make sure they can provide for their CEOs.
Yeah, for their CEOs, the important people. Yeah, it's interesting that same. I wonder what crossover there is between that 70% of corporations and the 70. No, sorry, I don't know what I'm talking about. Sorry, I was about to say 70% of global emissions caused by 100 companies, but that's sorry. I'm getting the emissions and the company mixed up there, but nonetheless, it's interesting.
Anyway,
yeah, it's interesting that there's it's a 70% statistic again, and it's to do with capitalism and kind of the.
mine's a joke statistic for the record. Like it's just a.
Oh yes.
It was just a riff at the paycheck to paycheck.
Yes, yeah, the paycheck to paycheck. Yeah. Yes, yeah, but it's interesting. You chose 70%, and it just sort of clicked in my brain. That was, yeah, that's a thing. It didn't really go anywhere. Let's push on, shall we?
Go for it.
Cool.
I hate that guy, so I don't want to admit he was right. Right, so let's talk about eggs. Let's begin with the thorny contention of eggs. Could you explain to me the meme that is the empty egg box, please?
Well, sure. I mean, I've been talking about this for years, but I guess I kind of hooked into a particular item on the menu known as Taylor Swift.
Oh.
So I guess it's like a lot of people, myself included, you will mark time a little bit by celebrities. Like just a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit. And I remember, of course, being older, that Taylor Swift came along like this fresh-faced cherub in her teens and seemed to have the entire world ahead of her and so on. And, you know, like Sting goes bald and Taylor Swift almost turns 30. And it just kind of struck me. Like I watched a couple of her videos. My daughter liked her songs when she was younger.
Stop here.
And,
okay. So first off, I want to know what random thing Stefan was doing that he just happened to be watching a Taylor Swift video. Did he do it on accident? Did it like pop up in his Twitter feed? Who is Stefan following that likes Taylor Swift? I have to know this conspiracy.
Also, I have to know, when I think of the empty egg box, if I saw these two having a conversation and an empty egg box came up, like Taylor Swift and fertility is not the first thing I'd have thought of. I'd have thought of the meme of Stefan Molyneux in an egg box, being the egg on Twitter. That's what I'd have thought of first. Yeah, I guess Taylor Swift kind of is useful because she's like, she looks kind of like the Aryan figure gone wrong for a lot of these people, because she's like a blonde, blue-eyed young girl who they can like fetishize into like, this is the perfect ideal, but it's just gone wrong because of liberal ideals. So I guess she
but
kind
unlike most celebrities, she takes political stands that actually mean something now and then.
Yeah,
which, doesn't align with their views. It's an important part.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah. I forgot what we're going now. Should
Sorry.
we? Should we push on?
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Cool.
I was thinking, oh, she's turning 30. Seems like a nice Christian girl. I mean, I know she's gone a little bit feminist and globalist lately, but seemed like a
Is
nice
she actually a Christian?
girl. Not great at choosing men and all that, but
I have
she's
no
young
idea.
and famous. And I thought, gosh, she's smart, she's talented, she's pretty, and would be ashamed to let all of that go down the swirling drain soup of history with nothing to show for it. And I was like, so I put out this tweet, which
Wait,
was
nothing to show for it, right? Like all the awards she's gotten, like all the museums to be in, inevitably. Like she has nothing to show for her life. Meanwhile, Stefan, who is always going to be remembered by the YouTube algorithm, at the very least, I'm sure that Stefan has not put out a video in the past 3 months where he laments that because YouTube is soft blocking him, no one is watching his content, because if it's not pushed down their throats, then no one cares.
I'm just looking through her politics. I've never heard Taylor Swift being called a Christian before. I don't even know if that's true. I mean, she could be.
I know that probably would have been part of her persona, like, because I'm from that generation, right? I'm a little older than Cog. But like when she started out, she was marketed as like this neo country singer, right? So like the whole God, guns, and Bible thing would have been like a part of that marketing. I don't know how strongly that actually reflects reality, though. Yeah, and certainly that was like 15 years ago at this point. So.
Yeah, and when I think of like Taylor Swift, I don't think she's not the person who I think of and then go, oh yeah, well she's she goes to church every Sunday and prays every night. That's not like, not that there's anything wrong with those things, of course, but like it's just not something which I'd have necessarily associated with Taylor Swift. And I'm just wondering if this is like Stefan projecting this idea of the good Christian Aryan a little bit onto
I mean,
her.
It could just be the dog whistle, right? It's the dog whistle that she's a good Christian girl.
Yeah,
that she's the anti-Muslim girl.
Yeah, anti-Muslim girl, exactly.
Not that she's anti-Muslim, by the way. I'm not accusing her of being anti-Muslim. I mean,
no.
The symbol she is to these people.
Yeah. It's like she's almost the perfect antithesis, but then again, she's not, because she's quite left-wing, as it goes. Yeah. Okay, so onwards we go, I guess. That's all right?
Yep.
Cool. Sorry, this is weird because I'm like running it from this end, as in like the video, but I'm kind of checking just to make sure because I don't want to like take over or anything.
I hope I can fix that in the future. But
yeah. Hopefully we'll get that sorted.
Now Taylor Swift is turning 30. By the time you're 30, 90% of your ex are dead. I hope she thinks about having kids. I think
that's his first thought.
Yeah. I don't know why.
That's his first thought. Not like, oh, it's lamentable that she's like lost the spirit of her youth or whatever. Like when you turn 30, that's like the big thing, right? Like you're not youthful anymore, right? You're an adult.
Yeah.
Like she turns 30. He's not like, wow, I'm so impressed by all the things she's done in that short amount of time. Like I'm not nearly as talented and I'm almost twice her age, or however Stefan is. His first thought isn't like, even like the most sexist thing I would think of is like, wow, she's like really pretty and still looks like a teenager at 30 years old. That's like the most sexist I would get with like praising in my head as like the first thing I think of. No, Stefan thinks her ovaries must be like raisins.
Yeah, I just can't imagine looking at a singer who's not actually that old, and as you say, isn't even like approaching menopausal stage, and then going, but what about her eggs? Like, what? Like it? I'd like to know. You said earlier you'd like to know why he was watching Taylor Swift. You know, who he was following, how he came to be watching. I'd like to know what Taylor Swift video he was watching that gave him that thought. Like, what about her eggs? What?
I mean, I admit I don't follow Taylor Swift. I don't listen. Maybe she did like a music video where she was an Easter bunny hopping around and she's picking up eggs and putting them in a basket or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's a little absurd for her, I think.
Yeah. Yes. Oh God. Yeah. I don't understand these people sometimes. Yes. Let's go on.
Now that's it. Now,
and what happened to that?
Well, apparently, let me give. Can I give you a sort of imitation of how I came across the people?
Please.
All right. Ladies, you must all be herded into the vat of the fertile women, and you will be impregnated by right-wing Nazis against your will, no matter what, and you will have no way of escaping this, and you will breed the master race, no matter what. Right.
Cool.
We should point out that in that Dr. Layman stream, that is what Sargon said he was proposing. By the way, some of these libertarian free speech warriors directly asked him, are you saying that we should do this even if the women don't give their consent? And Sargon was just like, yeah, probably what we should do. Like, he didn't even notice what he was saying. He just said, just threw it out there. That's what we should do.
What was hold on, I'm just trying to see if I can find an image of the she'd be yeah, so his original tweet was just sorry, I am boomering hard here at the moment, but I just want to show you.
While you do that, I'm gonna post this comment. If that's in the chat, and also I know plenty of women who've had children in their 30s. Just saying, yeah, we did address that at the very start because we knew where this was going. Even on Wikipedia, you can find that menopausal symptoms hit around 45, roughly, give or take a few years, because obviously everyone's body is different.
Sorry, this is a really bad quality image, but you might need to. I think you need to put it in the into the stream. Sorry. I got. Yeah, sorry. There's a bad quality image, but it's the first one that came up. But yeah, this was Stefan Molyneux's tweet that got him a bit. Yeah, it got him in trouble. It's a bit weird.
I just don't understand. Like, there are some things that you can't comprehend, and the mindset that not only tweets this, but like thinks this is a good idea.
Yeah.
This is an excellent idea to tweet this publicly. Like, I have plenty of thoughts that, I think, would that make a funny tweet? And then I'm like, that would probably not make a funny tweet.
Just because you have an idea doesn't mean that you should put it on Twitter. I think is going to be a proverb of the 21st century. Yeah, and
what's with the smiley face? The smiley face is what gets me.
I don't know.
It makes him like a 15-year-old girl when I'm reading it, like how my brain interprets that. It's like, she's fun mom. It's like, my mom doesn't let me have chocolate after 8 p.m., but Taylor Swift would be a fun mom. That's how I read that. Like, it's so weird. It's just really weird.
I know. Yeah,
like,
it's very strange.
I imagine this interview, like these two guys, like this interview would not look at all out of place if they were both leaning over the fence at a high school soccer practice, just like watching the teenagers go back and forth, just like, I hope she has her children young.
It's very strange. Like, yeah. I don't quite draw that analogy, but yeah. I know what you mean. There's like that level of creepiness to it.
It's just, I don't know what to do.
Yeah. That it's just like, just shh. And to introduce Stefan Molyneux and go, yeah, this is a guy alongside Alex Jones who is continually being proved right. Okay. Sorry, I'll switch back to the video. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
I thought that was worth highlighting, worth telling people about. Here we go. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Before we go on, I just thought I'd point out, like a video entitled "The Problems Facing the West." Like, if that was a TED speech, TEDx speech, I'd expect it to be like, oh well, this is about broad macroeconomic policy, not about like, with the first 5 minutes being about whether Taylor Swift should have babies before all her eggs dry up. Like, what? I just, yeah. Okay.
Definitely the most important thing, Cog. That's why you lost the election. Don't you?
I know.
See?
Clearly,
Jeremy Corbyn needed to talk more about eggs.
Yes, if only he'd been talking about Esther McVeigh's eggs, then he would have got through. Got through to the. Actually, sadly, that might be true, given some of the people who voted against him. But anyway, or some of the newspapers who encouraged people to vote against him. Stefan Molyneux looks very funny in this screenshot that we've got on screen right now, but I am going to have to unfreeze him. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that being clipped out of context.
Yeah, that is going to be clipped out of context for sure. But hey, there's no such thing as bad publicity. I don't care what you say about me. Just please try and spell my name right. Sorry, I know we just cut him off, but there's no such thing as bad publicity. It's just not true.
You figure Carl would cut him off at that point, right? Because Carl is an expert.
Yeah, bad publicity. I know. I mean, I was thinking more along gentle lines of like Jeremy Corbyn. I was like Jeremy Corbyn's been torn apart by bad publicity, and so But so you're right. So has Carl Benjamin. You'd have thought Carl would have gone. Well, there's like entire non-existent wings of UKIP in the southeast now that would probably disagree with you.
You don't understand. It was all part of the plan.
Yeah,
all part of the 20-year plan.
Yes.
Sorry about that. There's sirens outside. I live near the hospital.
Oh God.
But it was all part of the 20-year plan. This is the 20-year plan that he launched in 2019, by the way, not the 20-year plan that he launched in 2017. Because Carl just has to say, "Oh no, this is the start of the new plan." It's like he's like the guy who wants to lose weight for New Year's. He's like, January 31st is still technically a New Year's resolution to start going to the gym. Like his 20-year plans never seem to actually get into motion. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah.
That was my first thought though, is like Carl knows bad publicity exists.
Yeah.
He knows.
Yes.
He killed an entire political party with it.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Like, and as you said, it's like a diet that's, it always starts tomorrow. And it's just, I am on top of it. I just, it starts tomorrow after I've had my daily cake, But yeah, here we go.
But no, so this is how I came across, just saying, this is a biological fact. 90% of a woman's eggs are gone. They're dead.
Just we confirmed it's not a biological fact.
By the time.
Yeah. Did you want to elaborate, or did you want to just add that?
I was just going to throw that back out there. We've already proven that part through Wikipedia. Stefan exists.
Yes. Yeah. Oh God.
She's 40. Yeah, these are just facts, and it is
facts.
Facts that put a chill hand of mortality, I guess, up a woman's nether regions, and make her realize that maybe she just shouldn't be spending her entire fertile years chasing alpha bad.
Sorry, can we just talk about what a creepy metaphor that is? A chill hand of mortality up a woman's nether regions. What? Oh God. Oh, I think I need to ooh, wash my eyes
feel
out.
Did Stefan have a bad prostate exam recently? Where the doctor's finger's cold. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, what the hell? That was such a weird analogy. Oh, I can't believe this guy. People think this guy's a creep.
Just into your ovaries.
Yeah. Do you not feel the chill hand of mortality? I think, although looking at Carl, I think he's feeling the chill hand of mortality. I think this screenshot of Carl very much says, "Yeah, I've realised this guy is my only ally, and I'm really fucking up."
I mean, maybe Carl was taking it a little personally because, like, Stefan's like, "Wow, yeah." I mean, she's already 30. By the time she hits 40, she'll have nothing to show for her life. And Carl's there like, I'm 39.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Just having a moment of clarity about his own career at this point.
Yeah.
And how he's so toxic. He's stuck interviewing this guy.
Yeah, you can see it in his eyes that he's... I was trying to zoom in on his face, but it didn't work. Yeah, you can see it in his eyes that he's that he is somewhat struck by Stefan's words here.
Boys, and then ending up falling into the cliff of infertility. And this is just a reminder. And we get reminders all the time as men. You get freaky, you get old, and I guess the reminders for women are just.
Do we though? Do men get reminders of? Because, like. I don't know.
Stefan gets reminders that he's creepy and old.
Yeah, Stefan Mullen, yeah, he gets reminders that he's creepy and old.
Well, it happens to me. It must happen to everyone.
Yeah, but like I personally don't know what he's talking about. Like, do guys regularly get reminders that they're getting old? Like, is that a thing? And especially that they should have children? Is that also a thing?
I'm not sure. I feel like again, not to bring this to a dark place, but like, I feel like this is one of those situations where we're leaving out a key part of context, which is like, aren't you a little old? And Stefan conveniently has like erased from his brain the part where they say to be hitting on college girls. Like, I feel like there's something missing here.
Certainly, yeah.
Because I guess like that's a situation where I could see like some man repeatedly getting told he's a little old and creepy. It's like if he hangs around like the campus cafeteria at his local university.
Yeah, he certainly. I mean, the metaphors alone, the whole, was it? The cold hand of mortality creeping up your nether regions. Like, don't tell women this shit. You won't. They will consider you a creepy old man if you say these things.
Well, no, it's part of his Slash crossover fic where Taylor Swift, the celebrity, not the person, had sex with the ghost of Christmas Future from the Christmas Carol, and he's just reading us his erotica. That's all this is. I have no idea where he's getting this. That's like the first thing I could think of, though.
Oh,
I have a weird brain.
Right. So, should we push on? In terms of how you want to break this up, do you want to do like 5 minutes from the beginning, 5 minutes from around the middle, another 5 minutes from the middle, and then 5 minutes at the end? So we have like a 20-minute.
Yeah, we can do that because I do want to, just in case. Carl backs out of his backing out. People who hate Carl should definitely be checking out the happy hour interview if he backs out of his backing out, because last I heard, he had rescinded his request to be on Christy and Kev's show for some reason.
Oh, what a shame.
I can only assume was an act of desperation until Stefan reached out a hand and Carl said, "Oh, thank God, someone will still talk to me."
I'm just writing down the quote of the cold hand of mortality creeping up her nether regions, because I'm so using that Stefan Molyneux quote again. Like, what the hell?
For the record, anyone who's just joining us, this is why I don't have any notes for this video, because every time you watch it, there's something new. It's just something new every time.
I don't know if menopausal insurance is like a thing, or like insurance for treatment for women who are getting older. But if there was, I can picture the adverts being, can you feel the cold hand of mortality creeping up your nether regions?
Oh, no.
Like, the advert is like the egg box, and the egg box opens and there's one egg, and when the hand reaches in and turns it around, and it's Stefan Molyneux's face that somebody's imprinted on the box, saying, they can feel the whole cold hand of mortality creeping up their nether regions. Oh my god. Yeah, sorry, I'm still not over that. Oh, fucking hell. Right.
Maybe someone will draw fan art for you.
Yeah.
It'll be Stefan with like the Infinity Gauntlet, except it'll be like the cold hand of death.
I am inevitable. Right. Let's push on.
Somehow beyond the pale of the social contract.
Yeah, I find that this is something I've kind of struck on myself recently as well, because I was just thinking about the idea of beauty.
That's an egg cup.
Secular, from a secular position, because I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God, but I don't hate religion and I don't hate religious people, and I've never been religious. So
That was a lie, by the way.
Yeah.
Can lie, by the way. Which is another incident from the Dr. Layman stream. Was Carl basically looking for an excuse to be a theist through some kind of other framework that he could pass off as him not having betrayed his atheist principles.
Yeah.
In some way, like the conclusion looking for a reason. Basically like he literally floated it out like, well, usually we derive things like duty and fucking word they were purity? Was it pure? Or
I don't know.
Right, but since we're all atheists here, I'm wondering where we would derive all that from. Like,
yeah,
he could say is not God. He appears to have replaced it with Aristotle, hence the description in this video. Aristotle, who thought that the brain was for letting off excess heat and nothing else, probably would see these two. Well, this is the description of the stream that we're on, not their video, but...
Oh, sorry, the description of the video that we're currently... Sorry, I thought that was in the description of their video, and I was that's a very bold
Although
claim.
I did believe he brings up Aristotle quite a bit in the future. I think it's this video, not the Q&A, but maybe the Q&A was. Anyway, but yeah, like Aristotle, who thought that the brain was only for venting heat and nothing useful, would probably look at these two gentlemen, and I use the term loosely, and think, this isn't what I had in mind. But I feel like if you were looking for two people whose brains do nothing but vent heat, this is probably
there's probably a good case here. Should we get ourselves over the 5-minute mark? Get us past the whole Christian values thing. You know what I'm on about.
Sure.
Cool.
Sure.
And I was thinking about the sort of pre-Enlightenment West, the groundwork that was set for the West, was founded on Christian morality, so universal morality in which a person had innate value. And you had...
Can we just pause here for a second? Because... okay, so maybe I'm getting a little bit into the atheist territory with this, but it seems to me that actually, if you're talking about the pre-Enlightenment West, it's very much not the West. Like, it's antithetical to everything that we like hold to be valuable today. Like individual liberty, despite Carl's claim that individuals had rights, not really. Not when you're talking, if you're talking Magna Carta, that was about the rights of like rich landowners, lords of the feudal system, to have wealth and property, not about individuals having their own rights. Like I don't see the.
I mean, even theologically speaking, one of the reasons for Martin Luther's revolution is that sermons were not held in the local language; they were always held in Church Latin. So it was not considered important that you necessarily be aware that your soul is saved, I guess. Like if the intrinsic value of the human soul or whatever, the human life, was like derived from Christian teachings, which I think I know what he's getting at. I think what he's trying to get at is like how before Jesus Christ all men are the same, kind of thing. But like it was basically the same as being like a roach, right? It wasn't very important. Like there wasn't anything divine good about humanity. Humanity was and corrupted, which is why we had all these sacraments to purify you over the course of your life. But like none of that was like necessarily for the human part of you, right? It was for the divine part of you, the part that would carry on after the human part of you was done and dead.
Also, none of these things help a society progress. Like all of that could be true. Like all of that, and it still wouldn't give you human rights and the things which make Western societies actually. And I say unique. It doesn't make them unique, but the things which I think can be praised about Western society aren't related to its origins, particularly in Christian, in Christian beliefs. It's very much what it's been through since that point. But maybe a Christian would like disagree with me. I don't know.
I mean, personally, like not being a Christian, but like I think there's some like intrinsic value in how like Christianity conquered Europe, so to speak. Not like in the 13th century where they literally conquered it, but like the very early, very early post-Roman period, right, where they started turning gods into saints, basically like adapting themselves regionally to like fit whatever culture. Like they were able to culturally absorb all these different things and fit them under their banner and fit them in their worldview, and did not see that as hypocritical at all. Like the purity tests that we think of, like the Inquisition and stuff like that, that's very late stuff when Christianity had already had a monopoly for like 1,000 years at that point.
That's true. But also in terms of like unity, I think that, it's odd that they don't, for example, praise the Roman Empire for uniting large parts of Europe in much the same way. I mean, most of that unity wouldn't have been possible without the preamble of the Roman Empire conquering Gaul and Britain.
Most of the Enlightenment institutions are modeled on the Greco-Roman republics or democracies.
Well, yes, exactly.
So like there's this jump if you want to look at it from the institutional level, right? Like
I just don't understand why they find the origin at that point, and it seems to me that they just want to hold.
Yeah, they just want it to be around Charlemagne somewhere, and that's okay.
Yeah, they want to hold up this time of like perfection when they thought the Earth was perfect. And that Western society was perfect. The time of knights and the medieval and all this stuff, and it's like no,
it's all the prelapsarian thinking. Although I do think it would be really fun. I know he'll never deal with a small fry like me, but I think it would be really fun to like just talk to Stefan about like things like the Roman economy and stuff like that I know he has no idea about, right?
Yeah,
Like,
be very interesting.
but like I do, so
yes,
I'm curious to hear his opinion on how thoroughly controlled the Roman economy was, because it all depended on Egypt, for example.
Yeah, well, exactly. Should we go 15 minutes ahead and then another 15 minutes and then like the last 5 minutes?
Sure, we'll do that.
Cool.
See how fast we can do this.
Yeah. Right, let's see. What are they on here?
No, we don't know if he's continuing traditional Western values or some sort of Marxist.
Whatever.
class
Like,
rap
we
or
didn't
something
even
like that.
skip anything.
Sorry?
We're still on about traditional Western values. It's like we didn't even skip anything.
Yeah. Well, that's all they're going to go on about is traditional Western values. Yeah. Sorry.
The civilization that provided him with what he has, he doesn't feel that he has an obligation to, pass that forward. And I really think that we should think about this, because I'm not. I mean, obviously, demographic shifts are going to be inevitable if you have a declining population and mass immigration. But I mean, we could solve mass immigration tomorrow by just closing our borders.
Wait. Also not true. Because of the way we define demographics, that is not true. This is a primary example. Who in their reasonable mind, unless they're trying to be funny or like poke fun at the irony of the fact, would call Barack Obama a white man? He's half white. His mother was from Kansas, I believe, and she was very much like a white woman. But Barack Obama is a black man because he's half black, because that's how we define whiteness, is the absence of any other ethnicity, or at least any other ethnicity that we don't currently define as white.
Yes.
The same goes for Argentina. Argentina has a majority Italian heritage population. In New York, Italian Americans are considered white, but Argentina is considered a brown country. Same can go for Brazil and a lot of other South American countries, because much like the Irish potato famine, when Italians fled the Civil War of Unification, they fled everywhere, but especially to South America, because Spanish is a lot easier a jump from Italian than English is.
Yeah.
But like, there's a reason. I forget what Pope Francis's real name is. What is it?
I don't know.
Like Gregorio Bendolo or something like that. That's not a Spanish name. That's an Italian name. Like, but Francis is considered the first brown pope, so to speak. Like, even if we closed all the borders, the mere fact you have any kind of interracial mixing would mean that the white population would go down and demographic shifts would occur. That's just the way it works.
Yeah, because of the way you define it. Yeah. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
if Carl's goal is demographic equity, he's implying that he wants to enforce anti marriage and breeding laws. Like, that's the only way to do it.
Yeah, it's the only way you could possibly do it. And also, I'm interested in the idea that continuing your society or continuing your culture is something that's done through reproduction. Like, because as you say, like, I could, I could have children with a black woman, and our children would be considered black by Stefan Molyneux's standards. Like, they would be considered non-white. Like, merely the act of reproduction is, first of all, it's not continuing any racial lines because of the way that these people define demographics, but also it doesn't make any like cultural impact. Like, that person would still be white and what? I'm sorry, would still be Western, not white. Would be non-white,
right. Culturally Western. Yeah,
culturally Western, but equally. That, and then imagine that I had a child with a white woman, and then our baby, our child goes on to become grows up to become a Muslim woman and moves to Saudi Arabia. Like, it's not really, the guarantee of culture is not. It's not done by the act of reproduction, and these people don't seem to understand that that's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A culture is not. There's recently they had an acquittal in one of the very first American journalist beheadings in the Afghanistan war, and the man they had acquitted was from Britain. Originally, he was a British citizen originally, before he converted to Islam, and then he got arrested and caught up in this thing, and they think now it's probably not him, so they released him on time served, I think, is the plan.
Oh, God.
But like, looking at that, it's like, yeah, there are plenty of Muslim countries who have not beheaded Americans, but there are British people who have. So how do I gauge your country, Carl, as an American, looking out for my safety and my borders, right? Because there's nothing cultural about being born in a place. You have to embrace those values.
Yeah, and merely being white and merely being, born in the UK or in Canada doesn't make you, appreciate the have enough understanding of to pass on that culture. This is the most amazing thing I think about these people is they hate everything about Western society that makes it actually any good.
Makes it Western.
Yeah, that makes it Western, and for example, the closed borders thing. If you close the borders tomorrow, completely shut everything down and just did they say movement of. I think they mean movement of people. But if you stopped movement of people, say all of the best things about the UK would immediately collapse within a couple of months, with a complete shutdown, and I presume they want removal of people who are non-citizens, who don't have a permanent right to be here, and so if they were to do that, they'd be removing enough staff from, for example, the NHS. The NHS would collapse. It's 1 in 10 doctors are European. From Europe.
Also, you're going to have two interesting data points, and I say interesting in the fact that they contradict Carl's worldview, in that the UK is probably going to have a catastrophic death toll compared to pretty much everywhere else in Europe. I hope I'm wrong about that. I don't want it to be true, but based on the evidence that we now have and continue to see, that's probably going to happen. You're also going to get a huge drop in immigrants because all of the foreign students aren't there anymore. And Carl once said that I think what was the figure he threw out? He thought that 200,000 immigrants was just fine. It was perfect, right? But the UK, I think, has 350,000 university students as immigrants. Just university students. Doesn't count everyone else.
Yeah.
So
the amount of revenue those people bring in as well.
You're going to be in a situation where the UK is going to have suffered the most from this, even though the borders are going to effectively be where Carl wants them. So I wonder how he's going to reconcile that in a few months.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I have to say, I hope you're wrong about that, but I also agree that that's how it looks. That's very much how it looks, that the UK is going to suffer really, really badly with this. Maybe one of the worst in the world. I don't know.
Yeah, not to rip on it, but there was a BBC report. What was it? 30 masks from that conglomerate bullshit.
Yeah, so the government basically said they'd be producing 30,000 masks at the weekend, sorry, 30,000 ventilators. They said we've got 30,000 ventilators on the production line, and they'll be out by the weekend. And then actually it turned out that number was not in fact 30,000, but it was 30. And you can look at the footage of people of BBC News where that
they couldn't believe it was real. They couldn't believe it.
Yeah, they really struggled, and I can see why. I can really see why.
I mean, at that point, I'm wondering why you'd report it at all. Just say it's delayed.
Yeah.
Better to look like you're slow than completely incompetent.
Yeah, absolutely. But the unfortunately, the BBC, among other news networks in the UK, it's become so used to pandering to our current ruling party that it's just become a simpering mouthpiece for the current Conservative government.
We used to have this weird dichotomy where like you guys had like a really a more right-wing printed media, and the BBC was kind of seen as like a much more neutral thing.
Yeah.
In the United States, it was kind of the opposite, where the TV media was seen as left-wing, but the print media was seen as very top-notch. And both of those systems have just gone flush in the past 5 years.
Yeah.
Those ideas that we may have had that may or may not have been based in reality, but who knows?
Yeah. I mean, in the UK, you can actually. There's been studies done by UCL and I think it was Loughborough University have done various studies on media bias in the last 5 years, and how incredibly ridiculous the anti-Jeremy Corbyn articles particularly have been in the mainstream media and on mainstream TV as well. It's something ridiculous. It's like 85% odd of coverage was like negative, like specifically negative, and that's not including the neutral coverage, which made up a further 12 odd percent.
It's also probably not including the fan fiction that they used to write.
Yeah, you've seen the Daily Mail fan fiction. Of some anti-fan
Vampire Jezza destroys Britain.
Yes, which is quite ironic now, really, looking back at it. It's really quite ironic, given that it's I think the piece was entitled something like Prime Minister Corbyn and the 30 days that destroyed Britain. And it's been about 30 odd days from the point Boris Johnson was sworn into office to the point the coronavirus crisis hit. So there's a hidden irony there, I think.
They got the prediction right. They just got the names wrong.
Yes, quite.
Much like the prophet Alex Jones.
Oh yes, yeah, Alex Jones, who's above all known for his correct predictions. I can't believe they said that. Anyway, I feel like we should unfreeze Carl because we've put him in a rather unflattering position, and he's starting to look like his eye might be hurting a little bit.
Let's just assume, for the sake of argument, that we did. That's not going to solve the demographic crisis that is going to be the collapsing population numbers of our countries. And I think it does come from the fact that, frankly, there is an assumption that women have no responsibility in this regard. I think men have responsibility. Like men, it's a man's duty to get married and have children and provide for that family. But I think that
I want to put this out here too. Carl said that again, duty, which is I wish that the Dr. Lehman's stream was public still, because that was another thing they talked about there with all these libertarian big brains. When Carl was talking about duty there, as in a woman's need to be. Oh wait, we have. Do we have?
Hey.
Hello.
Hi.
Sorry, I'm running a little late. Hang on. I gotta turn my Pandora down or off. I frequently have like sounds that are distracting in the room where I work, and so I will turn Pandora on in my headset just to cut out the distractions.
All right. For those in chat, this is Woohooligan Comedy on YouTube.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
You've joined us in time to hear Carl talk about the duty of women to have children.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
But I was going to say, before you jumped in, I was going to mention that this is a point from the Dr. Layman stream, where Carl was talking about the duty of women and the duty of men.
Yeah,
the big brain libertarians were saying, well, what is how do you define a duty versus a responsibility? And none of them could do it.
Having children, like, what is this? Are we like the last couple of people on Earth? Or do we need to repopulate the species or something? I mean, I thought we were doing pretty good in that regard.
Yeah, I thought it was 7 billion of us was probably doing all right, you know?
Right. Like, are we an endangered species now?
Yeah.
Well, white people.
Again,
yes.
This whole
because white people are endangered. Yeah.
This whole thing, like, I don't know how Samuel will feel about this, but this whole thing again about men's duty compared to women's duty, because he said, oh yeah, well, men know that they have a duty to get married and get married and have kids, and it's like, well, hang on a second.
Well, and support and protect their family, I think, is what most people, the people that make those distinctions about like men's and women's roles. Usually, it's support and protect is the men's role.
Yeah, but like, I
don't
feel sorry. It's just that he's being like very sort of flippant about the men's stuff. He's like, well, men are doing their duty and they're doing the support and protect stuff, and they're all doing that really well. And it's like, well, hang on a second, you're not applying the same standard of scrutiny to men and women there, you know?
Right? Yeah. You're like just sort of hand waving the one, but then like really hounding on the other.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know how's your sperm count doing. That's what I want to know.
Yeah. Well, and they would say they might, if you brought that up, they might actually say that men are not doing well, because like there have been a couple of studies done recently that suggest that men's sperm counts have been dropping around the world. I mean, I don't know if it's like a first world. It's probably like a first world thing, because like, I suspect that like when you work a desk job, like a lot of us do in the first world, that like you don't generally produce as much testosterone, like, there's just not much call to be like really aggro at like an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, but these things like sperm count and testosterone, they're often like less linked than people think they are.
Right. Yeah.
But so like the whole, like, basically, if our bodies are producing a lower sperm count, it really isn't a reason to get freaked out and think this is like the end of the world.
Yeah,
there's bigger things to worry about.
And it's probably to do with
but like
natural selection in the system too, because like you look at other great apes, like the two extremes are chimpanzees and gorillas, right? Gorillas have very tiny dicks and testicles compared to their body mass, and chimpanzees have enormous testicles because they fuck everyone and rape everyone. And humans are kind of in the middle because we're serial monogamists by evolutionary standards, anyway.
Right. Yeah.
So like, because gorillas partner for life, basically, like they don't need to worry about their sperm count as much.
Yeah.
And probably like the past 8,000 years or whatever of human animal husbandry probably has an influence on that too. That's kind of some speculation regarding that. Also, I wanted to say, but I can't remember now.
I know that homosexuality develops in species that experience high population levels or adequate population levels. Typically.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So
you don't get as much of it if in like, say, an endangered species.
Typically, like, and so I think I mean, I'm just speculating, but there's my speculations are as good as the crap that they're coming out with. So
Yeah.
I just throw that out there as well. It could
I was
be
gonna say, like, you were talking about, like, it's not really a thing to get all bent out of shape about, and I'm thinking, like, I don't know, like, human beings in general tend to, like, get bent out of shape about all sorts of things that they really shouldn't.
Yeah, it's true.
And, like, these people, like, you can walk up to anybody who's been exposed to an alt-righter, and they can list off like 3 or 5 things that they get bent out of shape about.
Yeah. Oh yes, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's what I wanted to throw in before I forget. I was going to mention on how these libertarians can't define differences between duties and responsibilities. I would posit to them that your responsibility is something that you take on as an individual, implies an source. So a duty to serve in the military, maybe,
is
as
a collective
draft,
thing.
But if you have a responsibility, your responsibility as a citizen who like wants to be a constructive part of that society, to use what Carl's going for here as the military is the only thing he thinks of, even though if he got drafted, they would immediately throw him out.
I don't know. The only distinction I've ever drawn between duty and responsibility is that one of those words makes 12-year-olds snicker. So, but
yeah,
I don't know.
I've got to say that the American accent doesn't help either, or the American Canadian accent doesn't help either. The word,
because there's supposed to be a Y sound in there, duty.
Yes, exactly. And neither Americans nor Canadians hit it properly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, shall we press on? Is that okay?
Yep, go for it.
Cool.
Also does have an obligation there in some regard. And if we don't think they do, then man, aren't we doomed to just go extinct?
Personal freedom and obligation, everybody. We might be freeze peach warriors, but you have obligations.
Yeah.
To the state and the society.
Yeah, it seems like he's contradicting everything which Stefan was like on about earlier. Like, I'm not forcing anyone. I'm not saying we should all be breeding, and you should be forced to breed. And then it's like obligation. Obligation certainly implies.
Look at Stefan's face right here. He's like, how do I tell the only person who's invited me on an interview in 6 months that he's wrong?
Yeah. The whole obligation. Don't they have an obligation? Well, no, not really. Like, there's nothing. So, like, for example, in Kantian ethics, and this is something that I bring up a lot. So, like, I derive most of my morality from Kantian ethics, and like in Kantian ethics, you have duties to other people, but no one can tell you that you must. Like, it's not your duty to enforce other people into doing their duty, if that makes sense. Like, there's a certain level of remove the stick from your own eye, remove the what's the phrase I'm looking for? Remove the
mote from the eye.
Yeah, remove the splinter from your own eye before the log from your own eye before you deal with the speck in your brother's eye. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know?
That was from a passage in the Bible. I forget which one.
Yes. Yeah, and it's that kind of logic, but they can't kind of even most basic philosophical or biblical philosophical principles. Like, they can't do.
Yeah. Well, then that I kind of wonder about that passage though. That, like, because like so much in the Bible is, I think, like. We don't really, like, it's hard enough to get modern people to agree on an interpretation of a Bible passage in general. Like, any two people are gonna likely have different interpretations, but like, you're going back, almost 2,000 years. It's not really, I forget when, but it was, like the Council of Trent that actually created the Bible. But you're going back, several centuries, nobody can really put themselves in the head of someone living in 300 AD. And so, I think a lot of the things that are in the Bible, they're confusing because we just don't have the context to really to really understand them in the way that they would have been understood at the time.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if that remove remove the plank or the log from your own eye before you inspect the splinter in your brother's it's obviously a comment on hypocrisy, but I also kind of wonder if it wasn't just meant to be to encourage a sort of an attitude of not just avoiding hypocrisy, but an attitude of sort of honor system, just don't judge people, period.
Yeah. I certainly read it as a criticism of theocratic control more than anything. So that's why I find it particularly ironic that these guys are going on to say, but actually women and men have duty and responsibility, should be sort of forced into, and saying on the other stream that that women should be forced to have white babies or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
Well, and the Bible also is sort of self-contradictory in a lot of ways too. So you can't.
True. yeah, absolutely.
You can't always depend on.
I was just gonna say it's the original death of the author. That's what Easter's all about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's definitely a theme here, given that we're coming up to Easter and we're talking about eggs and fertility, and you can't say it's not seasonal. This video. Shall we press on? Is that all right?
Sure.
I'm going to wave the flag of false dichotomy there, that you have to accept the duty of having children or you go extinct. What I would say, or what I have said on Twitter and in a number of my call-ins, Carl, is something like this. Okay, so let's look at sort of these two poles, right?
I love how he just breathes over that.
Plus 10 happens, right?
Do you think Carl knows what he's saying?
The false dichotomy comment?
And
yeah. Do you think Carl realizes that he was just insulted?
I think there's... Well, when I look at that face, I don't necessarily think that's one which is fully with the conversation. Yeah, it's an interesting, yeah, it must be an interesting feeling.
You're full of shit.
I don't know. Sorry, go on.
I'm just saying that's a low bar. I don't know if we've hit it before.
I just don't know if I don't know who I feel more sorry for in this situation. I don't know which one of them I feel more sorry for having to speak to the other one. Yeah.
Gently remind her that she might want to think about having kids because, getting into your 30s, man, it can be a pretty long bowling alley to knock down those pins, so to speak, right? Yeah. So you might want to think about it sooner rather than later. And so what happens is
not true.
If the woman is unhappy,
the scientific study of that shows that there's not it's like the difference between having a child in your 20s and having a child in your 30s or 40s is your fertility rate drops by 2%.
Yeah.
So it's not A, it's not true, and B, my wife never wanted kids. My first wife did, but the Tiffany, who I'm with now, she's never had any desire to have children.
See, but I mean, I know people in their 20s who have who've miscarried as well, and like it's not and I know people who in their 40s who are having or have had babies who have never had any problems. It's not like it's not. I just think the way we're often taught this stuff is quite sort of basic level and just like, okay, this is how you want to kind of understand it, but it's not quite how it works.
The broad curve.
Yeah, exactly.
Then you extrapolate, like Stefan likes to extrapolate the broad curve into an individual truth.
Yeah, exactly.
That's always the problem.
Yeah.
Technologically, we're not very far from like being able to just like genetically engineer whatever kind of kid you want. Like,
True.
Like, pick your traits.
Yeah.
Do you want your kid to have, so here's a question, you're going through the questionnaire, like what you want your kid to have: blue eyes, blonde hair, like perfect Aryan. And yes, I want cilantro to taste like soap to them.
You could be all sorts of mean to your kid in a way that you could never be mean to them before. Yeah. Yes. My granddad told me that my dad's middle name was Egbert, and I believed it for years. It turns out my dad doesn't actually have a middle name. But it's just pulling my leg, and that's the sort of thing. But I feel like if he could have done, he would have done that. But I don't think my grandma would have let him. That sort of thing, that kind of meanness.
When you have it like, I think I'm getting a little lag on my end. I was going to say, Sam, when you put it that way, just fear the genetic baby creator thing as less of like a fascist Gattaca and more of like the World of Warcraft creator. Her parents are scrolling through.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I could try blue this time.
Yeah,
it's Minecraft for babies.
It depends on who can afford it, right? So like, if the fascists can afford it, they definitely would go the Gattaca route. But I think like if it became affordable for like the general public, like if we got like a CRISPR for babies, like a lot of people would just be like, I'm going to soup up my orc.
Yeah.
I want an orc baby.
Yeah. I'd hate for it to have an effect on like the ableism in our society, though. Like I'd hate for it to, affect disabled people, or discourage people from, or even go down the Aryan Nazi route of, because there's a lot of problems with our cultures that having that power would be, I think.
Yeah, I think most humans are not prepared to have that power.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I had heard something about it became inexpensive enough that like a majority of people in Japan were able to not like genetically engineer like everything, but I don't know if it was even genetic engineering per se, but it had become inexpensive enough in Japan for them to choose the gender of their child. And as a result, like the gender balance in Japan is now so off that like most people are just not having sex because it's too hard, because like there's like one girl to every like 10 boys.
Yes. And for example, if you gave that power to a country where it's even, the gender imbalance is even worse, somewhere like Pakistan or Saudi Arabia, you would, you create all sorts of problems for yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, should we press on? Because I'm aware we've got caught on this tangent of the.
I'm sorry. I got us off on that.
No, that's good. You ready to press on, Dataport Doc?
Yeah, go for it.
Is Dataport still? Okay, cool.
Yep,
Sorry,
go
I thought
ahead.
you dropped out for a second then because you've been quiet for a while. Cool.
Then you could, of course, make the case, okay, well, one of the reasons why you're unhappy is, we're kind of designed to have kids. Like we kind of are, because that's the only reason we're all here, is going back 150,000 years or
to have
4 billion
kids?
years if you want to go to single-celled organisms.
Really,
We've been
yeah.
having this reproductive race and racing to the top of the food chain and all of that. So, we're really designed, you and I are just vehicles for our DNA to get to the next generation. We're just, we're like stones on a pond that they just use to cross over to the next generation. So
I think that's so reductionist. I think we're designed to have communities, certainly, but that doesn't mean that everyone in the community has to have children.
I just I think of quotes from Star Wars like luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. And then I think just Stefan Molyneux saying, yeah, we're just stones being thrown across water. And it's like, I'm not sure really which philosophy really pulls me in more.
Yeah.
God.
Hard pick there.
Yeah. And how do they reconcile this with the idea, like, from Christianity that humans are like special and that the universe is like centered around our existence, and around a theist God who interferes with our lives.
The universe was created for you, just so that you could be created just to be a vehicle for sperm.
Yeah. Really.
Where does it stop is my question. Like, if you're only here for the next generation, then theoretically they're only here for the next generation. Like, who actually does the good thing that civilization is here for?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, right. That description also like provides no actual meaning. Like if we're talking about like the alt-righters, the fascists that like they want to have some kind of like meaning, right? They want their life to mean something, but like Molyneux is then just saying like, nope, it's just it's just your sperm. That's it. That's what your meaning is. Like,
yeah, I know. I also find it really problematic that they view everything, especially as they like pride themselves on understandings of like Locke and Aristotle, and I've heard Sargon bring up Kant before, but he admitted he didn't know much about Kant, and it's like, oh yeah, that's fucking obvious from the way he talks about him. But and Rousseau and the social contract and all of these people, like that they weren't they didn't have philosophies based off of teleology. Like it wasn't a kind of these weren't teleological ideas, particularly like Aristotle. And yet these guys seem to be very kind of basing their whole philosophy and morality and political philosophy around the idea of teleological goals. Humans are humans are just machines for breeding the next generation. It's like, well, not really. Like, not if you believe the things that you actually read and actually pay attention to them. If you'd said to any of those people, if you'd said to Aristotle, Kant, if you'd said to Locke that we're just breeding machines, they'd have gone, no, because most of them were like Christians who believed that humans and were inherently valuable and were autonomous beings with their own internal value.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, maybe I'm ranting.
I will admit I had to go like re-look up teleology. But
oh right, yes, yeah, sorry, goal-based, goal-based morality.
I mean, I had known like I'd looked it up before, but like it just is used so infrequently in my circles.
Yes, yeah, of course.
I don't get a lot of teleological dick jokes,
Just want to say I approve of Orion Cooper's comment here. We are literally watching Monty Python.
Yes.
Every sperm is sacred. Every sperm is great.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right.
If the
Exactly.
sperm is wasted, God gets quite angry.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good point. Cool. Shall we press on?
We are beyond parody. Yes, continue.
We are.
If you're not going to have kids, you're kind of going against what we're built for. And again, people can go against what they're built for. We have free will, and that's perfectly valid. But so if the woman is really unhappy, she's like minus 10,
Perfectly valid, but
say, well, you know, maybe one of the reasons you're unhappy is you're not having kids, you're not enjoying the creation of new life and the nurturing of a new generation and the beautiful thing that is parenthood and all that. So, you know,
I'm not a 40-year-old woman, but if I was a 40-year-old woman and somebody said, maybe if you had kids, then you'd be happy. Especially, like, I think they mentioned somewhere, I'm not sure if this is, like, still to come, but they say, that this woman, this 40-year-old woman, hypothetically, this 40-year-old woman will reply to them and say, I'm perfectly happy how I am. And then they'll click on their bio and it will say, I suffer with depression.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and then they go, well, maybe it would help if you had kids. And it's like, no, having kids is not a cure for depression.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember hearing on public radio about a study that was done that said that people that have children actually, statistically, are more prone to depression than people without kids. That like kids actually literally like screw up your life. Basically. I mean, it's not that bad. It's not like, it's like everything else. It has its ups and downs, but if you want to go, if you want to get all scientific, like, Molyneux says he always does, like, I got some news for you, bud.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be even really generous with Stefan here. Like, yeah, I mean, that's certainly something to, like, not be afraid of to, like, mention to people, right? Like, well, maybe, like, people are in denial about a lot of things in their life, right?
Sure.
People's identity may be like, oh, I'm a person who would never want kids, but maybe they do because they haven't thought about it in the right way. But like,
sure,
the implication, I can say as a 34-year-old woman that there aren't enough people telling you that maybe you should have kids in your 30s.
Oh yeah. Right.
We've got it covered, Stefan.
Like,
yeah,
you've heard it. Every woman has heard it. It's okay.
No, I certainly have never heard this from my parents or grandparents. Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. It's like the whole the whole safe spaces are bad because gay people need to encounter homophobia. It's like
yeah.
They've done it. They've got it covered. It's all good. It's all good, mate. Yeah. Let's press on.
That's a possibility. But whenever you point that out, you know what the women say? They say, wait a minute, man. I'm super happy. I'm plus 10 and I don't have kids, right? And that's what you generally get. I'm living my best life. It's a perfect life. I couldn't be happier and so on.
And then you see their Twitter bio and it says depression in it.
Yeah, there.
Well,
there
yeah,
is.
but even if they genuinely believe that they're happy, like there was a sad-faced woman holding up a sign saying, I'm 30, I'm unmarried, I'm childless, and that's okay. And it's like, I don't think you need to hold a sign up if something genuinely is okay. You know?
You don't even think about it. Yeah.
You don't even think about it. But then what you...
yeah, it's just because people like you keep questioning it. That's why she's holding the sign up.
Yeah.
Also, does the sign have to be a protest?
The like Black is Beautiful campaign? Like the Black is Beautiful campaign didn't exist because Black people were unhappy with their appearance.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
Like, I'm imagining all the signs at Trump rallies that are like, lock the borders or whatever.
Yeah. It's okay to be white thing.
Stefan saying that.
Oh, yeah. It's okay to be white. Well, is it really? Because you're holding a sign.
Yeah, you're holding a sign. So do you honestly believe that it's okay to be white? Because otherwise, you might not believe it. Otherwise, why would you need the sign? Sorry, can you say that again?
I was just saying, are you convincing me or yourself with your sign?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, did I cut out?
Who needs convincing here?
Yeah, I think
I've been having
cut out then. Yeah, I think there's been a little bit of
convincing himself that it's okay to be white, which I'm sure Stefan has to do constantly.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Let's hear what else he's got to say.
Say is, if they're on the plus 10 side, like I'm living my best life, having a great life, it's like, oh, so you really enjoy being alive. You love being alive. And I love being alive. You love being alive. It's a great thing to be alive. Especially when you're an atheist and you know the odds of all the matter in the universe coalescing into your couple of pounds of wetware that drives all the joy that you derive out of existence. So you say, so you love being alive, my lady, and you only get to experience that joy because your parents decided to have children. In other words, you have inherited this great gift from the universe called life. And yet you're squandering it on yourself, on your own petty pleasures, on your own petty preferences, and you're not passing it along to the next generation. That to me is appalling. Again, assuming you can. There's lots of people who are infertile and all that, but assuming you can, why would you want to? It's like inheriting $1 million from your father who worked 16 hours a day down in the mines to gather that money together, and then you're like, I'm going to buy a yacht. You know, and it's like, don't squander your inheritance on trivialities, on nothingness, right? And so if you've got this great gift, fine, pay it forward as best as you're able to, and it will give you great satisfaction. Because
sorry, can we just pause it there? There's a deep irony here that I'm thinking of. Donald Trump was given a small loan of $1 million,
right?
To create a hotel chain and a university that crashed and burned.
Right? Yeah. I'm also I'm sort of imagining he's well, if you have the ability to have children, why would you squander that? All the wonderful, the richness of life. And I'm just imagining him telling this to someone who's, was born into slavery or, working in a salt mine. How could you possibly deny the next generation all of this in the salt mine?
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's exactly it, isn't it? It's not about life itself. It's about the conditions in which you live, and that's the valuable thing that's given ultimately. Life is an important, maybe a factor in that.
I mean, it's a prerequisite, certainly. Yeah.
But it's no good if you're just a child slave in the 1800s. Working in a Victorian factory in Manchester or wherever it happened to be.
Yeah, or picking cotton or whatever. Yeah.
Well, exactly. Yeah. Are you okay, Dataport Doll? You've gone quiet.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Cool.
I feel like if I talk too much, I'll throw off the stream or something.
No. I think you'll probably be all good. It's just, I think it's your mic, because generally the stream is holding up. But I think it's just your mic,
okay. Because I get some lag too on my end with the video now. So.
Oh, okay. I don't know. It seems to be coming through. Okay, I've got to open in another tab. But anyway, okay. Let's push ahead.
Because you get to universalize your joy by creating the life in another that you get to benefit because someone created it in you.
And I think in the case of women going into their 30s, when women tend to get into their 40s, I mean, what are you living for? How much longer can you just be, essentially just indulging your own self-interest? It strikes me that you're going to get quite lonely as the years go on, because there's a huge spate of unmarried 40-something career women at the moment. You see these articles being written all the time. I'm 42, I'm in shape, I've got an amazing job, and I can't find a boyfriend. Is it Scarlett Johansson? One of the most beautiful women in the world. Can't find a boyfriend. How is this happening? Well, she's 42. She's got, she's adopted children, and no one wants to. And there was an article written about where she was demanding men step up. And that is, that's entitlement if I've ever seen it. But that's not going to happen.
Men love investing in another man's DNA. That's exactly how men work.
The gall of these two fuckers, being women have a duty to step up, but if women talk about what men need to do, they're entitled. And it's like, fuck off, you two. Come on.
Did you notice that jab at Carl, by the way? Everyone saw that, right? Am I the only one who saw that?
Which jab? Which bit?
Where Stefan was talking about how his laugh here is because he's talking about men taking care of other men's children. For those of you who aren't aware, Carl does have stepchildren.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
So like he's calling Carl a simp without.
He's calling Carl a cuck.
Yeah.
Right here on his own channel.
Yeah. Also, I think this whole
Carl knows.
I think this whole thing about like this whole cuck thing and this whole men naturally want to take care of their own DNA. I think it's bullshit. I'm sorry, like I know people who grew up with adopted parents, and it's like those adopted parents.
Yeah, like where did all the adoptive parents come from? If that's the case,
yeah, and also those adopted parents are just as much parents and just as much loving and just as much, the fathers of their adopted children as any other father. You know,
right? Well, I mean that they have the same mixed bag that biological parents have. Like some, biological parents range from great to awful, and so do adoptive ones.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's the kind of delegitimizing of them merely because they're not your offspring, or that you have some, inbuilt aversion to bringing up or being kind to other humans that aren't your offspring. That I find particularly repulsive.
It's a very
what? Because that's what men do. Men just like sort of like walk around the mall like backhanding any child that's not their own.
Yeah,
they're like lions.
That's not my gene pool.
No, this is a very, very typical way that the modern alt-right has basically warped Dawkinsian thinking, which, for anyone who doesn't know, because you don't watch my Andromeda videos, which you should, because it predicted all of this. Andromeda has a culture called the Nietzscheans, who are a combination of Friedrich Nietzsche, Ayn Rand, and Richard Dawkins. Literally, that's like their whole thing, because Dawkins wrote the Selfish Gene paper in the 70s, right? And where he posited that genes that are more related to each other protect each other more than total strangers, right? And it's how communities evolve.
Right, but like
the way people have interpreted it is like, your brain does not know, like, specifically. You can't touch someone and they have 83.3% of the genetic code. I'm going to protect this person and throw this. No, you do that based on your community. Like, you came from the same family group, so intrinsically
or
that
the same
you are
tribe or
somehow.
whatever.
Even if you're not directly related, like before animal husbandry, and we knew how DNA worked that way, right? Because human history, we traced ancestry matrilineally until we developed animal husbandry, and then we figured out, that's how that works. So like people could do that, but like, we don't do that because we know exactly how much DNA is in someone. We do it because they're part of our lives. Like that's the gist of Dawkins's paper, right? But they've taken it to like this super extreme end where only my DNA matters.
Yeah, exactly. If I skip ahead to 35 minutes in, so that's another 15-minute jump. Are we okay to do that and sort of catch up with what I was saying, and then the last 5 minutes?
That'd be fine.
Cool.
I do want to end this just in case, like I said, Carl uncancels his interview today. So
cool.
We still have an hour left, but
cool.
Let's go.
Highly competitive. I've seen many documentaries that suggest that men they get a particular chemical rush out of competition. You can see it physical competition in particular, but any kind of competition. There's a genuine joy of it for young men especially, and older men as well. And
adrenaline causes euphoria.
Yeah, I know. It's like, and also like I think I know women who who are around my age, not going to name any names, but my sister would certainly be among them if I did name names, who are highly competitive. And they certainly get a rush out of absolutely thrashing me at games. Like,
yeah. Well, I had a whole video on the toxic masculinity subject, and so like one of the points in that particular video was that like they always equate like, you know, what is in our culture is like fundamental human nature, and it's like it's so not, because like if you look at like the female warriors in the movie, well, and in the comics too, in Black Panther, the King's Guards in Black Panther are based on a real group of women from well, the country doesn't exist anymore. The country was called Dahomey, but it was later overrun by like the French Foreign Legion. But like, I mean, like they had machine guns, you know, like there was an obvious advantage. But but the Dahomey had their social structure was such that the most violent people in their society were all women. There were a legitimate military force called the Mino, who were like super aggressive. They were known for like decapitating people in the middle of a battle, which like you generally don't do. Like you don't, like you attack people, you stab them, whatever, and you move on. You don't stop and make sure the head is severed. And like throughout, much of, I think it was like the early 18th century or I don't remember exactly the period, but 1700s, 1800s, somewhere in that vicinity. Like British soldiers would say, like, yeah, I've seen them. I've been in fights with or against them, and like, do not fuck with them. They are the hardest people you will ever meet. All women.
Yeah.
So, and they took part in Dahomey's, and they weren't just military. They also took part in Dahomey's political structure. They were given like seats on the political councils and whatnot. They had male slaves that had to like walk behind them at like 6 or 8 paces. So, to say, like, oh, well, this is just the way men and women are, like, yeah, no. No, like a lot of that is all social. Like it's all like because your society says that you're supposed to be this way. And, just coincidentally, your society says this because you happen to be born with a particular set of genitals.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Like this is the reason that we put so much emphasis on dividing sex and gender.
Yeah.
As the important,
but I mean, Carl's a gamer gator, so he wouldn't care about that.
Yeah, I know. Shall we push on? Because obviously I'm aware that what time does Kevin Christie's interview begin?
Well, their stream starts in an hour, so I figure we'd get here like half an hour before.
I know. We stop at
everyone who wants to attend both can take a break.
We stop at like every like sentence or two.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
There's just so much wrong in the things that they say.
Yeah, they just say so much stupid shit. Right.
It's competitive, not to be this disagreeable, as Jordan Peterson might frame it. And so you're essentially putting one kind of person against another kind of person who has a natural disadvantage. And so, like you say, okay, you've got to get into the workforce. Okay. But the competitive people succeed. So it is men at the top, mostly, because they're the ones who are doing the 70-hour weeks. They're the ones who are putting their nose to the grindstone. as a preference against the women who feel that they're being held back because they're women, and it's not. It's just because of their own natural inclinations.
Sorry, Dataport Doll. The reason that you're not a CEO, it's not because there are more CEOs called Kevin than there are female CEOs, or whatever that statistic is. You can look it up.
Yeah.
Kate.
You mean like if they're all male, like different male names? Yeah.
No, there's like a statistics. It's like there's more CEOs called James than there are female CEOs in total.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry, Dataport Doll. That's not the case. It's not because of any inherent bias or patriarchal nature of our society. The fact that women couldn't vote, until fairly recently, the lagging behind of women's rights. None of that matters. The past sort of 3,000 and 3,900 odd years of female oppression. It's nothing to do with that. It's purely because you're shit. I'm sorry. We just want to clear that up with you.
Utterly. And here's the other thing that I really hate. This is why Carl gets up my butt so much. Is he thinks he's such a great individualist, and like the reason is like women should not be necessarily in the workforce. They'd be happier raising children, right? But and this is a point from earlier in the video. It's part that we skipped, I think. But the part in the video where Carl is like talking about like, well, it's because the women are in the workforce because the capitalists want them in the workforce, right? They want productive people they can tax. And the thing that always bugs me about Carl is that he has these points, but he never like looks at them from an individualist level, right? Like, well, why would a woman individually choose to be a worker instead of a mother? Could it be because we don't support mothers in the same way we support workers?
Yeah.
He does the same thing with he tries to school black people in the United States all the time, right? He's like, well, the problem is that black people don't get married as much as white people, so white people have collective household value. But he never asks, well, why is it individually for all these black people a better choice for them to stay single than it is to get married individually? Like collectively, yes, it might solve a lot of cultural problems that the community might suffer from, but why would they choose that? Why would someone say, oh, I'm a felon, maybe I shouldn't get married? He never thinks that part through, which is what infuriates me about him so much, because he claims to be this great independent thinker and the patron of the self-appointed person who's self-directing and self-actualized, but he never thinks of things in terms of individual motivation.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. Like I can't make the point better than one of the minorities, a black person or a woman as you are. So yeah, I just let your phrase stand.
Yeah, it's silly to think like if you know anything about the history, it's silly to think that like competitive that more men are CEOs because they're more competitive. Like, so like,
well, it's certainly not because they're smarter.
Well, I mean,
Yes.
I don't think anyone would have considered the Dahomey women, the Mino Corps, uncompetitive.
Yes. I think you've only done half the thinking if you if you go through that kind of. It's like when it's like the more black people are more likely to be arrested and imprisoned by the police, and it's like, yeah, that stands as a statistic, or or even extrapolating that to black people commit more crime. But then you haven't done the extra thinking of going, okay, so why do those statistics exist?
Right? Yeah.
Just But anyway, let's press on, because again, every two words we have to stop these fuckers and ask what they're ask what the hell they're on about.
And don't worry, I have no monetization to worry about.
So I'm going to just reinforce what you said there real briefly, which is if you look at the verbal pyrotechnics that Carl and I, in our own shows, and even in this show in particular, the risks that we're taking, the risks to upset people, the verbal pyrotechnics, the charisma of the interaction, and all of that, the focus of what it is that we're doing, it all arises out of the basic fact that nobody wants to see our kids.
Yes. Yeah, I can't stream on Twitch in a low-cut top.
No, low-cut
would do
tops
nothing.
do not work for me.
I mean, I've got great breasts, but...
I mean, if these guys were in shape, they probably could.
Yeah. I was going to say, I don't know that nobody wants to see my tits.
Bodybuilding Twitch is a big thing. Like,
I'm kind of proud of my man boobs, to be honest.
Oh God, yeah. I think that they're not exactly specimens. Neither of them are particularly bad looking as it goes. They're just not amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
But I know on Twitch there was a channel that was the guy was a bodybuilding Nazi gamer. Like that was his thing.
Oh,
it's a very niche market, but he filled it very well.
Yeah.
He wasn't just the golden one, but he did his gaming while he was on his treadmill or whatever. Like he had his laptop set up. It's stuff but you could do it, Carl. You could not wear a shirt. The reason people wouldn't pay you money to see that is because they would run away horrified. They'd probably see the image of James Carville carved on his chest. I don't know.
There's a tattoo on one of his man boobs that says, have you even read Locke?
Like the Richard Nixon back tattoo.
Maybe he has
his name actually has. I forget the guy's name. One of Trump's billionaire friends actually has a Richard Nixon back tattoo.
Oh, Roger Stone?
Yeah, Stone. Yeah.
God. That's all I want to know about that.
Maybe it's Carl's new favorite phrase. Why would anyone choose to be straight?
Yeah.
Which says a lot more about Carl than I think he knows. But
yeah. Yeah, well, particularly when directed at women. Let's carry on.
That's right. But it's all floss and no plumbing.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But that's the thing. The feminist propaganda in the 70s was, you're a slave to your husband. It's like, okay, well, ladies, who are you a slave to now? Unless you run your own business, which most women don't, then you're just a slave to your boss, and you go into your artificially lit office. And
most men don't run their own business.
I was going to say, by which logic, all of us are slaves.
Yeah.
Except, the only people who are not slaves then are CEOs and small business owners.
I mean, Davis Orini would have words to say with you, Carl, because as we know, women are evolved to run Etsy stores.
Yeah, or independent contractors, some of us, I guess.
I'm blown away by how close he comes to actual, critique of capitalism, democratize the workplace, and then just sort of falls past it and farts his way off the cliff.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway.
It's like he willfully ignores the point.
Yeah. Oh, it's extraordinary.
Which might be the case. He might actually be willfully ignoring it.
Yeah. There's certainly more of a grift in ignoring it. So,
from your life. So you can hopefully get that promotion. How important really is that promotion? How much do you feel satisfied with your life? And you can look at the self-reported rates of happiness of women over time, and they're just.
I just want to point out that these are really easy questions for Carl to ask, who will never have a normal job in his life, ever.
Yeah, well,
Carl will never be high job.
Him and Ben yeah, him and Ben Shapiro are like, constantly going on about how wonderful the job, the structure of jobs is. Meanwhile, like, he's never had one.
Yeah. It's. I think it's also worth pointing out that like depression in men is very, very high. Like the idea that this is like so Carl going and pointing to women, like the increasing rate of unhappiness in women. I mean, to me, there's not many studies that have been done on non-binary people and their unhappiness, but to me, it suggests that actually that everybody is getting more unhappy and more dissatisfied with their lives. It's not a kind of it's because less people are getting married. Like there's many factors here.
Yeah, well, right. It's happening. It's happening like across the board in first world countries, isn't it? Like it's not any specific demographic. It's like everybody. And so then they go and they point to specific demographics. Like you're like, oh well, women. It's because they're not having kids, and for men, it's because they're letting women cuck them and blah blah blah. Like. What?
And it's attributable to the climate crisis as much as it is to people not being married. It's like,
there are a lot of things. There are a lot of things for people. There are a lot of reasons for people to have anxiety these days.
Yeah.
That have been growing for a long time. So
yeah, absolutely.
Brief point. I do want to say, to be fair, Ben Shapiro does have a job. It is a shit job, and he's making things worse. But like doing the grift that he does is a job. It's just, it's not the sort of like the structure of work that he praises all the time.
Yeah, he has no one to
What is his job? Is it speed talking?
It's just talking shit about anybody that disagrees with him.
Talking to college kids, trying to forget that Piers Morgan exists.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Press on. Is that all okay?
Yeah. Yep. I'm good. I'm good.
Cool.
I'm not happy. And then you get the effect this has on men. And I mean, like, testosterone has gone down precipitously. And that's not good. That's not good for men. I mean, like,
they got to it.
It's not good for men. You get increased risks of certain kinds of cancers. You get depression. You get all of these other effects that are actually really physically negative. And then you get men not knowing their place in the world. You get the phenomenon of incels. Like, this is a modern phenomenon. And these men are resentful, man. They are really resentful. And there's very little you can say to persuade them that they shouldn't be. Because,
I'm pretty sure that incels are not a modern phenomenon.
Yeah, well, certainly, like, hatred of women isn't a modern phenomenon. As far as that's what an incel is, if you see what I mean.
Well, yeah. I mean, there is that, but like, also, like, I think he's thinking that like incel, people being involuntarily celibate, is a product of like women's liberation. That like, when women were told that they didn't have to just like hitch themselves to the first guy, that's what created like all these men that can't get laid. Which, not getting laid is not their problem in the first place, but.
Yeah.
Remember, Carl's basis for this point is that second wave feminism told women they were enslaved to their husbands. So now we have incels, and it's so sad.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the strangest jump.
I just want to keep it in line for everyone we started. But
historically,
train of logic so far.
Attitudes about sex. We didn't always perceive sex as like a positive historically. Like if you go back to like the Greeks, like thought of love or lust for your spouse as kind of a weakness, right? So like, that like they would have considered an incel like the height of manhood. Like he is unable to, or not unable, but like he does not have sex. He is the perfect man.
I also
Locke
find
was
it
treated
strange.
as mental illness. Oh, sorry. I think we have a delay developing.
Yeah. I have a frustration with people who refuse to vote for like left-wing candidates, and then a few months down the line they'll say, "See, the left-wing candidate didn't win," and it's like, well, yeah, because you were part of a very large contingent of people telling us that they wouldn't win, and therefore creating a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy. And I feel like a similar thing is going on with these guys. Like they're talking about incels, and they're saying, yeah, the incel worldview is right, and all these incels keep appearing, and I can't figure out why. It must be down to something wrong with society today. And it's like, dude, you've got the answer right in front of you. It's worth pointing out that they're like accepting the incel worldview, but a lot of incels who think they're incels and involuntarily celibate, because that's what it stands for, are actually volcels. They're actually voluntarily celibate because they're not going out and meeting people.
Yeah. Well, and there's that, and then there's also like if you pay attention to the rhetoric in their chat rooms, they do a lot of obsessing about like physical appearance, about like that like they talk about like skull shapes the way that Nazis do, that like just a millimeter of bone here or there makes you unfuckably ugly. But then if you go and you look at like the guys that the incel community hold up as quote unquote heroes, the guys that the guys that have like perpetrated the like attacks on behalf of the incels, and if you look at their photos, they're handsome guys.
Yeah,
they are not like by any stretch of the imagination unconventionally attractive. So
this is a thing you find among incels, is they're actually not all that bad looking. And also that much worse looking men end up in relationships and are very successful in the dating world. A lot of it's to do with attitude.
Danny DeVito has been married. The argument is settled.
Sorry, who?
I said Danny DeVito has been married.
Oh yeah.
The argument is
well,
Sargon of Akkad has been married, if that's the standard we're going for.
They would say that like Danny DeVito and I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name, the public TV host. They would say that those people got married because they're rich. They have this whole structure about like, this is how people manage to get married if they're not attractive. And so like, if you're unattractive and you're poor, you're just shit out of luck. But they're not even unattractive though. They're attractive people.
Yeah, I know, it's frustrating. Should we press on, because we're getting dangerously close to going over time.
It kind of looks like society has been stacked against them, as much as one can stack a society at this point, especially given the legal system against men. And so it looks like we're arriving in a place that is really unhealthy, and really we're not optimizing for good things, for things that are genuinely good for the human being as an animal. We're optimizing for an idealistic, purely rational view of the world, and I think we have to accept that we're still stuck in animal bodies.
Isn't Carl a literalist?
To be honest about, I don't think we are being honest about it.
A literalist?
A liberalist.
Do you want to explain what you mean by that? Go on.
Well, like he's like, I think the problem with society is that we're trying to be too rational. Like, is this it? Is this the feels over real?
Yeah, it is very much. Yeah, his. It's very much not the problem with society, as he's sort of demonstrating, or demonstrating badly. Yeah. I'm sorry. I zoned out for just a second there as I was talking, because I was I just switched off for some reason. I don't know what it was. just blurred out, I think I'm really hungry. Sorry about that.
Yes, low blood sugar does that.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Sorry. So I stumbled through that a little bit. Yeah, sure. Let's push on.
Yeah, men do have a lot to be angry about. I mean, those of us who grew up, I'm a 60s kid, grew up 70s and 80s, and man, it was carnage in my neighborhood with regards to divorce and hostility and custody battles. I mean, it was a godforsaken wasteland. It was a hellscape of human horrors and problems. And there were these kids in my neighborhood who had like the magic families. They were like the fortresses. They were immune for a variety of reasons, which we could talk about perhaps, but they were kind of immune to all of this propaganda. This propaganda that sets men against women, that sets women against men, that sets the poor against the middle class against the rich and so on. I mean, I was in Hong Kong.
Oh, God.
A variety of reasons. We'll talk about it later, though.
Yeah.
Is it even worth getting into that?
I don't think so. I think they were probably just the rich people in his area, and Stefan was just like, "Oh my God, rich people who I can suck up to."
Yeah, immune to the propaganda.
Oh my God, just so full of shit. Yeah. Anyway,
last year of shooting a documentary, fortunately right before COVID-19 came out, and I was out there, and you really get to see this viscerally. I was talking about how the communists kind of wormed in, and they were these societies which had existed with complex contracts and so on for centuries in China, and they just wormed in, and they say, "Oh, that guy's got more because he's stolen for you, and he's stolen from your family. He's an evil landlord," and they just stoked these fires like a man blowing on a fire that's going to consume his entire world. They stoked these fires with these soft syllables of savagery, and it ended up, of course, blowing up into the entire revolution that killed tens of millions of Chinese people. I got a very vivid sense of that kind of combat.
For the record, it's the exact opposite of what Stefan is portraying it as. Just wanted to throw that out there.
I know I'm not a Maoist, but and that's a very strange sentence for me to say. I'm not a Maoist, but the idea that the problem was that there was no real issues in monarchist China, and there, and that that they were lied to by the communists, and they hadn't really stolen all their wealth. No, it's objectively true that people, particularly in like what was essentially just getting beyond a feudalist society, like large parts of China before the communist revolution were in sort of medieval stage in terms of the structure of their society, and they were very much still beholden to lords.
Yeah,
it's just not true.
And you probably argue that they were culturally and geopolitically the strongest reason is that during the life of Republican China, like they watched as they became the most powerful country in Asia, and they watched Japan supersede them slowly and sometimes very violently through wars and just attrition. And the Republican nationalist government was seen as very acquiescent to imperial powers encroaching on what is theoretically the greatest country on earth, China. It's in their fucking name, Chunghua, the Middle Kingdom, the center of the earth. And they're getting kicked by this little island to the side. Europe, Hong Kong.
Yeah, exactly.
And everyone else, that country, exerted it.
Yeah. I mean, I think you can condemn the French Terror and also say that the monarchist regime of Louis XIV and Louis XVI was horrific.
Yeah.
Like I don't get why they have to be so sort of flippant about the.
Well, right, but like Sargon and Molyneux have a real habit of making those kinds of conflations. Where they're like, well, if you are going to condemn X, then you also have to condemn Y, or or vice versa. Like, no, not necessarily.
Yeah.
And got facefuls of tear gas and all that kind of stuff. It's very, very vivid and very powerful. And this focus on women. How do you get people to resent others? Well, you say that they have what they have because they've taken it from you. And so now the way that it's supposed to work in people's minds is they say, well, women, you see, you just don't get paid as much as men. And it's because men are sexist and men look down upon you, and men have these wonderful lives because you're on your knees scrubbing and doing laundry. And
yeah, it's the straw man feminism, the idea that we think that women are just suppressed and all men just have it better than all women. That's not how it works,
Yeah. Well, they do the same thing on they do that on every dimension though too. Like they do that on racism too. Like, oh, racism doesn't exist because racism doesn't exist because O.J. Simpson, or like, come on.
Unless you're talking about white people, and then racism does exist. You can be racist to white people.
Oh, yeah. You're right. There's only racism against white people, but racism against blacks, Obama is a person, so therefore... Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, Dataport doll, I feel like I kind of cut you off.
$4 billion of cash to essentially survive that. So guys, the hits keep coming. Obviously,
is there...
under a lot.
Are you still there?
No, I think kicking up. It just keeps adding seconds.
You're just adding.
I'm alive.
Sorry, you're alive. Cool. All right, let's press on then. Cool.
You just keep pouring. It's complete Iago. It's complete Iago, and it destroys love. You just keep pouring these poison words into people's ears, and it takes a pretty staunch spirit to resist this stuff. And a lot of women don't. A lot of men don't. A lot of women get resentful, and then they become entirely unappealing to marry. And that's another way in which the soft erasure of an entire culture can be achieved.
Yeah, I mean, it is ideological as well. It is ideological by the context.
I like how
Stefan
there said women become unappealing to marry, and isn't that too bad? But if incels are unappealing to marry, well, there's something severely wrong with the culture.
Oh, yeah, absolute double standard.
Right, it's individualistic when it's women, but it's collectivist when it's men, which is... That's, yet again, like, it's the same way that they they're like all in on collectivism when it's corporations that are taking the money.
Yeah. We've got 4 minutes left before we said we were going to end. So should we skip ahead to like the last 3 minutes and just like listen to that and hear that out?
Sure.
That'll take us slightly over, but
we'll try.
Cool.
Schizoid, I can't even tell you how much it troubles me.
And the best part about it for me was that the fact that he was advancing the argument that worker co-ops would be as or more effective than capitalistic
it's certainly more
ownership
moral
of production. Well, yeah, but he was arguing the efficacy of it. And if that's the case, then you're holding your YouTube channel back by not socializing the means of production of it. So why don't you do that?
Oh, they're talking about the debate with Vosh.
Yeah. Yes. They don't seem to understand that these business terms like worker and employee don't apply if there's only one of you,
Yeah, right. Well, or, that nobody is suggesting the collectivization of, say, Mary's Etsy store next door.
Yeah. God. Let's let that comment stand.
I mean, he said, "Well, I do 95% of the work." Well, then, you're very much a capitalist in this regard, Vosh. Why, if you believed in your theory,
no,
to live it. I mean, people can complain about Bernie Sanders all you want, but I mean, he did live on a commune.
You're not a capitalist if you don't have any employees.
Yeah, and also if you do 95% of the work, like. There's a degree to which like the work on YouTube is things like retweets and stuff on Twitter. Like But just because say Kevin or Christy makes a video and then they put it on Twitter and then I retweet it. That's an important part of it. The publicizing is an important part of it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm doing their labor, or doing the labor that I get the I get a claim in any money that they make or something like that. That's not quite. People can still volunteer for you and voluntarily put forward their services and say, hey,
right. Well, retweets on Twitter and whatnot are they're just word of mouth. It's just like that's always been word of mouth has always been a thing. It's just that now it happens online a lot.
Yeah, I'm thinking. Yeah, I think that's what he's thinking when he's saying 95% of the work is done by him. So yeah. Sorry.
Well, he does. He in the debate he said that like he does hire. Not full time. He hires people to like edit down his videos, like sections of it. But like those are like tiny jobs. Those are like those are like literally like find the time where I started talking about this and the time where I ended, and cut it down and put my intro graphic on it, and that's it. It takes like each job takes all of a few minutes. And so like, it just wouldn't make sense for him to like hire even one person full time to do that.
Yeah. Or to divide up his business and say that these people are entitled to, a share in the
right. To have other people come on his channel. Like they have their own channels and they're doing fine.
Yeah. And a lot of it is that you can also socially benefit from talking with other YouTubers. Like, there's a social benefit there. That's so like I might clip down, clip down clips for whoever, for Kevin or Christy or whoever, or a streamer like Child Logic, But
and he does that too. He brings people on to have discussions.
Yeah, and it helps socially. There's more than just like financial payment involved in this whole dynamic. I feel like we're talking a lot on Dataport. I feel like you haven't said anything for a while. Are you all right?
No, it's okay. I'm just trying to avoid the apparent delay that's on my end.
All right. You seem all right. You seem like you're caught up at this end. So, right.
I think she's in an area where her internet connectivity is not fantastic.
Yeah, that too.
All right, let's.
He was kicked off the commune for laziness.
He was, yes, because but at least he tried to engage with the things that he was preaching. But when you get someone like Vorsch, who's like an arch capitalist in his business practices, and I can't believe that the people he's working with accept what he's doing, because they surely are socialists as well, which drew them to Vorsch because of what he was preaching. And then you get the example of like Hassan Piker from the Young Turks, who was getting some other socialist online to edit his videos, send them to him, and he wasn't paying the guy for the videos. He was just uploading them. So he was just openly exploiting this guy. I mean, if you're a capitalist, that's exploitation. So from a socialist perspective, my God, that must be some high crime or something. But I think it's a wonderful phenomenon.
I don't think he's quite understood what exploitation is, or exploitation criticism is.
In the capitalist sense.
Bosch isn't just a capitalist; he's an arch capitalist. Hadn't you noticed the top hat and the monocle?
Obviously. I mean, here's the lesson for Carl, though: being a proprietor does not mean you are a capitalist necessarily.
Right.
And I'd imagine he's going to have that told to him again and again and again over the next few days, because he was stupid enough.
The whole revolution, so to speak, of capitalism is that you could invest in other people to have them make money, and then because you enabled that, you would then be entitled to a part of the profit. That's the idea, right?
You don't have any
wide scale before the 1600s.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, this is the opposite of capitalism in a way, because you've got your own. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
So what Vosh does, to be honest, because he he's on Twitch and YouTube, and like I don't know if he's partners with them, but like the capitalists in that scenario would be the people that run the platforms that he's on. He would be an independent contractor, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, there's all sorts of things wrong with his analysis. It just doesn't know what he's talking about.
Because, I mean, arguing the Byzantine logic within Marxist theory is boring, pointless, and excessively complex. And the people who do nothing but that are probably going to win those arguments.
Logic. Jesus Christ.
But just at the very end, when you got...
How long is Das Kapital, by the way?
Man, his argument was just special pleading. Well, I don't think it worked for me.
Right.
Well, why should it work for anyone else?
Yeah, it could be the last thing I'd want to do, but absolutely, it's what society as a whole should adopt. And it's the same thing. So I had a debate with an academic, Mac McManus, and it was a lot of abstract kind of stuff, immigration, this and that, which is, it's fun and interesting and worthwhile to. For me, it's like a warm up. It's a warm up to the kill shot of, okay, let's look at how you're living your life, right?
Oh. The interview
that's the kill shot, is it?
Sorry, does the interview just end?
Yeah.
How you're living your life, right?
Yes. Carl's been doing this for 7 years or whatever it is. Yep.
And he can't create an ending to the interview.
He can't even fade out to black. He just
we'll just end on a point.
Right, and you realize that like they ended on the kill shot is let's examine your life. As
Carl said, I don't want anything to do with that.
Yeah. But like he ended on that point as though that is like some like grand gotcha that just like that's it. They just destroyed every socialist ever.
I know.
Yeah,
so tired.
All right, we're a little bit over. I think we'll call it here, guys. Thanks for coming on. This is much more fun than just doing it by myself.
Yes.
Thanks, Doll. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Do either of you have anything you want to plug? I know Cog, you got your Discord up and running.
My Discord isn't quite running yet.
Okay.
It's not open to members yet, but that is something. Yeah, in time that will be something you can do. But also follow me on Twitch because I have like 4 Twitch followers. I need help on Twitch really badly. Yeah. So do that. Thank you.
Sam, you got anything coming up? Or
I have been at the beginning of the year. I said I wanted to publish more comedy videos. More frequently, that is, on my YouTube. And then I promptly was sick for all of February. having to do with being diabetic and, having to deal with like the nonsense of the American healthcare system. I fell into I'm actually still in the Medicare prescription insurance donut hole, they call it.
Yeah.
So I'm dealing with that, but it's basically just my YouTube. I'm still hoping that I can get more videos out more frequently this year if I can get better. I mean, physically, like but thankfully there was a GoFundMe recently and I am able to cover my deductible. And so I should be able to start publishing more frequently soon.
That's good.
YouTube, Woohooligan Comedy is what you want to look for. I had to add comedy on there because Woohooligan was already taken by a guy who does fashion reviews in the Philippines. And like Woohooligan, like hooligan, for him was about like football hooliganism because he started out just reviewing sneakers. And had 50,000 subscribers when I first saw him. So like just doing sneaker reviews. People were really serious about their sneakers.
That's how we grow our channels, is do sneaker reviews.
Sneaker reviews. Probably would be better than leftism, not going to lie. But for channel growth anyway.
You get plenty of sponsors,
Yes, true.
Nike and all that.
But yeah, you guys get me your. I know your YouTube channels, but Cog, get me your Twitch name again. I forgot it probably. It's probably the same. But I'll link it in the video description after we're done here.
That would be brilliant. Thank you.
But I want to thank you both for coming on and helping me with my jihad against Carl of Smirt.
Yes,
it literally is a jihad, by the way, because people have pointed out that why is Carl the only person I seem to go for relentlessly? Because the only other response video I have is my first video, which was to Aiden Paladin. But I'll share the reason here is because Carl invokes Sargon of Akkad, who's kind of like a sideways affiliated figure to one of my religious pantheon. So it's kind of like if they suddenly found, let's pretend that Jesus was a carpenter and not a rabbi for a second. If they suddenly found in the desert like this whole trove of like all of the stuff, like the tables and chairs and stuff that Jesus made while he was a carpenter, and then some YouTuber came along and started critiquing how all perfectly and like all that shit, it would kind of be the same thing, right? It's not a holy thing, but it's really close and annoying to me a lot. And I know that you share Carl. So
it is what it is.
But thank you guys for
we all have the things that get under our skin. To be fair, as a comedian, I think that's like most of comedy is like people like bitching about like things that just, they're most of the time, they're not super important. It's just things that just got to us.
Great, man. Yeah. I've got to go because I've got to grab food before I
don't pass out.
So yes, I am genuinely feeling faint. Yes.
Thanks for coming, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Take care, Cog.
Thank you, chat.
Thank you.
All
right.
Thanks, Doll.
Thank you, Sam. Yep. Thank you, everyone else. Hopefully, we'll do this again, maybe sometime. We'll see.
Yeah, it was fun.
Thank you.
See you guys.
See ya.